Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Now, when you're happily browsing the web, do you ever think of the infrastructure that it's built on and how the world's biggest brands manage to maintain such high availability 365 days of the year, and especially during this incredibly busy holiday season now? Probably not, because we take it all for granted. But believe it or not, this is the kind of thing that keeps me up at night, and I want to champion those unsung heroes that keep the lights on and ensure you have a positive experience online. So step forward Fastly, which is an edge computing provider, the infrastructure backbone supporting the technology that everyday internet users depend on. In a nutshell, Fastly builds mini data centers in strategic locations across the globe, which allow users to get access to content faster than ever before. So imagine driving a self-driving car. It needs to make split-second driving decisions which are powered by computer processing. If the car had to wait seconds to get information from a traditional data center, it just wouldn't work. What it actually needs is computing power immediately. And all this is achieved from smaller server outposts, which are edge networks. Now, Fastly currently works with Slack, streaming music provider Spotify, Hotel Tonight, Airbnb, along with Twitch and big media publications such as the New York Times, Fast Company and Rolling Stone. So I invited Artur Bergman, he's the founder and CEO of Fastly, onto the show today to find out more. Now, Artur Bergman, he was a hacker and technologist at large, was the director of engineering at Wikia, supporting its mission to compile and index the world's knowledge. He's also an enthusiastic apologist for federated identity and a board member of the OpenID Foundation. Now, although Artur resides in Denver in the US, he's over in London here in the UK at the moment, so I caught up with him to find out all about Fastly. So buckle up, hold on tight, it's time to beam your ears all the way to London so we can speak with Artur Bergman. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
So Artur Bergman, CEO, founder of Fastly. We are an edge cloud. And I started it about 6 years ago. Before that, history as a technologist. I was CTO at Wikia. I worked at Sixapart, and a long history of open source work as well.
Now, Fastly builds mini data centers in strategic locations all across the globe, essentially allowing users to get access to content faster than ever before. But can you expand on that and what makes Fastly unique from all those other similar solutions out there?
The core benefit we bring, and then on top of that there's a bunch of others, but is we beat the speed of light.
Yeah.
Right, so if you are a user in New Zealand or accessing a service in the UK, or a user on the East Coast accessing a service on the West Coast, by having content and logic closer to you, we just make your experience much faster. And the distance across the US is about 50 milliseconds. The distance from West Coast to the UK is 100, and to Australia it's about 200 milliseconds. And it's every image, every object on a page has to go through that. So a good example is Guardian here in the UK has an edition in Australia, and Australians get that content from one of our 4 data centers in Australia. So the performance difference is very large. There's also a security aspect to that, which is we have customers that suffer from DDoS attacks and other security attacks. And by defending against those attacks as far away from the customer's core data center as possible, we can offer a better defense.
Now, just to put this into perspective, I believe Fastly currently works with email killer Slack, streaming music provider Spotify, on-demand booking services such as Hotel Tonight and Airbnb, and streaming video services such as Twitch and media publications like the New York Times, Fast Company and Rolling Stone. So it's phenomenal what you're doing here. But just to let anyone understand and visualize how you're helping these businesses, are there any use cases that you can share with us today?
in the media case, one of the core principles behind Fastly is to make this infrastructure feel like the news sites or streamer sites or whoever our customers is infrastructure.
Yeah.
And they give extremely fine-grained control. So one of the core features around that is instant cache invalidation or cache purging around the world. So if you take a news site, whenever they change something, they send an invalidation and we fetch the new version of that content. And this means that in a normal case, right, that you go to the news site and the page load time is maybe a quarter of what it usually is. But there's an additional benefit. I think news is a very good example of this when there is a major news event. Prince died, for example. Everyone goes to these news sites, and there aren't that many breaking news sites in the world. And under normal circumstances, they would either have to have a very large infrastructure ready for that, or they wouldn't be able to serve the traffic. And we serve that traffic on their behalf. And we never have to go back to their data centers unless they make a change. And then we only have to get one copy of it and stream it to everyone else. We'll see situations where someone's traffic goes up by maybe 20, 30x within 1 minute, everyone accessing the same piece of content because some world event happened, and we help them stay up and we help deliver that content to the people who are, for some reason, trying to access that content. Which looks very similar to a distributed denial of service attack, because the entire world is suddenly to a very few set of resources.
I'm glad you mentioned when somebody makes a change there. That sets off a few alarm bells in my IT world, because working with some of the world's biggest companies, you must hear many war stories about how even the most routine changes can cause a lot of pain. So I'm sorry to ask, but as a man that still has IT blood and change management in my veins, even though I've left it behind a long time ago, is change management still one of your biggest challenges?
I mean, internally, it is a big challenge. We operate a 24/7 network that cannot go down.
Yeah.
And so making sure that when we release changes of anywhere in our stack is a large challenge, and how to balance that with giving our customers access to new functionality as fast as possible. For our customers, it's also a big challenge, and they all are moving to rapid deployments, continuous integration, and we have a set of features that make that much easier for them. One is the cache invalidation. It's about 150 milliseconds. Another one is real-time configuration changes. So you can roll out a config and then roll the config back within 1 to 2 seconds, and real-time statistics and log files. So if you do a change and something doesn't look like it should, it's very, very quick to revert. And I think one of the biggest blockers for people when we do releases is the cost of rolling back. Right? If it takes 10 minutes to roll back, you're very, very sensitive. If it takes a very short period of rolling back, then of course it gets easier to get something out there. The other thing we do for our customers is stale if error. So if for some reason the core data center goes down or shows an error, we will show whatever content we have if they let us. So when there was an S3 outage last time, a lot of our customers did in fact not notice, because we kept serving their content to the world, even if we couldn't fetch it from S3.
You also mentioned a few moments ago DDoS attacks. So how do you manage that evolving DDoS landscape that is possibly one of the biggest threats to your high-profile customers too?
It very much is, and they come in waves. Like last year before the election, there were quite a few very large ones. There are a couple of ways. One is just by having capacity. At the end of the day, you need more capacity than the attacker. Yeah. Because if you have less capacity, even if you're really clever, they're just going to fill up the inbound traffic. So we have a system. We have a lot of capacity. We have about 18 terabits of capacity worldwide right now. And we have a system designed so that if the attack comes everywhere, we absorb it everywhere. But if they try to target a specific location, we can move that DDoS attack to a much larger, broader set of locations around the world. We also have invested a lot in our software to be able to handle a large DDoS without having the software itself suffer or the operating system. And our security team is deeply involved in the community with tracking new botnets, tracking new vectors of attacks, and tracking command and control networks so that we can both get warnings if we're about to get attacked, but also help with sharing information with others to reduce this threat, because it is a very large threat to the internet at large. And recently we've seen a lot of IoT devices being used, but it's, as you said, ever evolving. So we need to always know what any new potential attack vector is.
Now, one of the other things that put Fastly on my radar was learning that you've achieved over 100% annualized revenue growth in the last 2 quarters alone, and also doubled your overall customer base in 2 years. I mean, can you expand more on that phenomenal growth?
I think that there's a very large push from internet-based companies to grow a global presence.
Yeah.
We were very early here in the UK, and I think a large part of that is UK customers that want to grow, like to grow in the English market, English-speaking market, which is very large, but spread out all around the world.
Yeah.
And that push for internationalization has really helped us. And the features we bring, which the traditional edge space has not, allows them a much better control and visibility and offload for their services. And I think there's been a demand for this kind of service that wasn't met by the existing providers. That, coupled with our philosophy of letting it feel like your infrastructure, like you can do anything on it, and our investment in customer support and generally how we interact with customers, fits very well with the DevOps movement and this idea that you can do things rapidly, you can change things, you can roll forward, you can roll back, and you can have high visibility in what goes on all around the world. Like those things together really have helped drive our revenue.
Now, Fastly also raised an additional $50 million for its content delivery networking technology, taking the funding to $180 million, I believe. So can you tell me more about this funding and also how it's helping you continuously improve and grow your business too?
Yeah, so we've fundraised on a pretty regular basis. I mean, we're not old, right? This is our 6th year of operation. There's a difference between us and a lot of other SaaS companies in that we need to have our own hardware around the world. And deploying that hardware has different level of challenges depending on which country in the world you're operating in.
Yeah.
So if you want to do Brazil or India, that is a significantly more difficult challenge than, let's say, UK or Japan. And that has led us to require more capital, I think, than a lot of other startups do. The other is that it's a very large space and very high demand for new features from customers, whether that is image optimization that we launched last year, or more security features, or global load balancing for recovery and redundancy in a multi-cloud world, has led us to invest a lot into our R&D. And the 50 million really is there to make sure that we can continue investing in both R&D, new locations, and increasing the sales, marketing, and sales support side. Because we do believe strongly that we're asking customers to trust us with their business online, and we need to be there for them 24/7 and make sure that the delivery of their applications or websites to their customers or their users is always available.
And I think for anyone listening, just to put this into perspective, what you guys do there, Fastly's Edge Cloud platform serves over 10% of all internet requests. And I recently read how Fastly's 2017 Holiday Real-Time Insights showed that this year was the biggest Cyber Monday yet. I mean, can you expand on some of those insights that you discovered around that?
In general, we see world events, right? So whether that is the US election, which suddenly was a worldwide event, or sales, or some other big news event or a big sporting event. One of our biggest streams at the time was El Clasico game between Real Madrid and Barcelona. It is kind of a little heartwarming to see that the world's population can still act kind of like one hive mind when something like this happens, and the ability for them to actually get that content and act on it, or get through to the store and act on it, is, I think, critical. I lived in London in 2005, and I remember during the tube bombing how no news sites essentially were working. And I lived close to Moorgate and couldn't get any information online. And I think helping prevent that from happening is very important to a lot of us. And the behavior of people is still very much the same, which is you want to know what's going on. You want to know right now, and you want to see what you should be doing. On the more sales side, we see which customers get larger spikes. During Super Bowl, we see the spikes that happen during the commercial breaks, where some customers see like 20,000% spikes. But we also see, for example, that the activity around the halftime, in Super Bowl, people check online about the artist, depending on how famous the artist is. So when they have some of the less famous artists, the traffic to sites about music goes up more than when the really famous artist comes up. So we can see some pretty nice, detailed, larger trends around that.
Now, Fastly is one of the top 10 fastest growing B2B tech companies of the last 30 years. And you're already experiencing phenomenal growth and success. But where do you take it from here? What is your grand vision for Fastly?
It's sometimes hard to keep the grand vision in place or in your mind when you're growing this fast, because startup time feels both like forever and yesterday.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, it's not that long ago, but when I think back to our size and customers and so on, it feels like an eternity. And so looking forward has kind of the same aspect to it. I think that a vast quantity of the internet traffic still doesn't go from edge cloud, and it should, because of the performance and reliability and security features that we provide. And so I think that there is an unmet market, or is an unmet demand, or there's a lack of demand for this because we haven't provided the services that people need from us. And so continue expanding the platform to that. Because eventually I want to make it very easy for developers to develop applications that work worldwide in a secure and performant and reliant way. And I want to make it very easy for operations engineers to operate those kind of applications. And as growth more and more has to come from the rest of the world, the requirement to build your websites and your applications to work worldwide just becomes even larger. Right? If you follow the trends, eventually the entire world will use the same amount of online services as the US and Europe does. And it needs to become much simpler to serve that demand compared to what it is today.
Well, a huge thank you for coming on the show today and sharing all this information. But before I do let you go, can you remind the listeners of where they can find out more information about what you do, what we've talked about today, and also how anyone listening can actually contact a member of your team?
Yeah, so www.fastly.com is our website. Yep. We have a lot of information on what we do. We have some real-time stats about the network and what it performs. I think right now it's doing somewhere around 4.5 million requests per second. And then email us at sales at or marketing at fastly.com. We also attend a lot of conferences and support open source projects where we also attend their conferences. And it's all listed on the website.
Fantastic. Well, I really do appreciate you coming on today, because I think most people are guilty of going on all those big name websites that you guys support and probably have no idea of what you do or how you're ensuring that it's higher level of availability. So a big thank you for coming on and sharing those stories and making us all aware. So thank you.
Thank you.
A huge thanks to Arthur for coming on there and not only talking about Fastly, but also demystifying much of the technology that we take for granted. So the next time you are busy browsing, working, or just playing around online, whether it be on Slack, Hotel Tonight, Airbnb, Spotify, Twitch, New York Times, Fast Company, or Rolling Stone, I want you to stop for a moment and think about the hard work that companies like Fastly do right behind the scenes that we never get to see or hear about. I think it's fascinating now that our lives are completely dominated by technology, but hardly anybody knows or cares about how it all works, or even the hard work that goes into making everything available without any downtime. I mean, if the internet goes down in your house, you'll hear lots of tantrums and frustration, but beyond turning it off and back on again, most people are immediately lost. And I think that's a little concerning considering the rise of smart homes now and how the typical home has more technology than offices and schools. But you know what? There is no IT department on hand. And we all, and I include myself in this, just plug anything into the wall and expect it to work. But imagine if an alien just landed in your garden this afternoon and said, but how does this work? And you might reply, I plug it in and get power. And then you'll be greeted with another question. How does electricity work? I just plug it in. But for the most part, we don't know, understand, or even care how these things work. We just want it to work. So I think there's a lot of food for thought there, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, experiences, insights, the whole shebang. So please, I'm talking to you there, sat on the train to work or on the commute to work. So why not send me a quick email to techblogwriter@outlook.com, or equally send me a tweet or a picture of where you listen to the show every day and show me what you can see every day. But I'm afraid we're at the end of another episode now, but I will return tomorrow as always. So all that's left for me to say is until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.